Good evening. Tonight we're going to go over Chapter 5. We'll go over the key concepts, and then we'll have some case studies, one that you'll read, and then a video case study just to reinforce the concepts. There's two main topics in Chapter 5. MIS infrastructures, where we look at the business benefits of an MIS infrastructure, supporting operations, an information MIS infrastructure, and supporting change, an agile MIS infrastructure. The second topic we'll look at is building sustainable MIS infrastructure. So we'll look at MIS and the environment, and then supporting the environment, sustainable management information systems infrastructures. First though, let's take a look at case 2. So I'm going to give everybody 45 minutes in class to do it, and then email it to me. I'll send out an email on the due dates, but we'll go through it just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So let's get started with that. Okay, let's move on. So the first key concept we looked at was the three primary types of MIS infrastructure. So the three primary areas where enterprise architects focus when maintaining a firm's management information system infrastructure are supporting operations, and that's an information MIS infrastructure that identifies where and how important information, such as customer records, is maintained and secured. A second area is supporting change. An agile MIS infrastructure includes the hardware, software, and telecommunications equipment that, when combined, it provides the underlying foundation to support organizations' goals. And then the third area is supporting the environment. That's sustainable MIS infrastructure, and it identifies ways that a company can grow in terms of computing resources while simultaneously becoming less dependent on hardware and energy consumption. So next, we looked at the three primary areas associated with the MIS infrastructure in information. And again, the information infrastructure is to provide continuous business operations. So three primary areas there are backup and recovery. So a backup is an exact copy of the system's information. Recovery is the ability to get a system up and running in the event of a system crash or failure, and that includes restoring the information backup. The second primary area is a disaster recovery plan, and this plan provides a detailed process for recovering information or a system itself in the event of a catastrophic disaster. And then the third area is business continuity plan, and this details how companies recover and restore critical business operations and systems after a disaster or extended disruption. Next, we looked at the characteristics of an agile infrastructure. So first characteristic is accessibility, and that refers to the varying levels that define what a user can access, view, or perform when operating a system. Availability refers to the time frames when the system is operational. Maintainability or flexibility refers to how quickly a system can transform to support environmental changes. And portability refers to the ability of an application to operate on different devices or software platforms, such as running on a Mac, on Linux, or on Windows. Reliability or accuracy ensures that a system is functioning correctly and providing accurate information. Scalability describes how well a system can scale up or adapt to increased demands for growth. And finally, usability is the degree to which a system is easy to learn and efficient to use. Next, we identified the environmental impacts associated with MIS. And obviously, one of them is increased energy consumption. A second is increased electronic waste for our equipment that needs to be decommissioned. The third is increased carbon emissions that are associated with MIS. E-waste refers to discarded, obsolete, or broken electronic devices. Sustainable MIS disposal refers to the safe disposal of MIS assets at the end of their life cycle. Next, we looked at the three components of a sustainable MIS infrastructure. The components of a sustainable MIS infrastructure include grid computing, and that's a collection of computers, and they can be geographically dispersed that are coordinated to solve a common problem. Cloud computing is the use of resources and applications that are hosted remotely on the internet. And the term comes, at least in part, from the image of a cloud that's been used to represent the internet for the last 25 years or so. Virtualized computing is the creation of multiple virtual machines on a single computing device. Okay, next. First, any questions on those key concepts? Okay, well, now let's read the Box case study. So take about 15 minutes to read that, and then I'll go over the questions. And of course, they follow the Bloom's taxonomy: knowledge, comprehension, application, and analysis, synthesis, and so on. So take about 15 minutes or so, and we'll get back and go over this. Okay, let's go ahead, start the review here. So, list the ways, well, let me put it this way. What are the ways that an agile MIS infrastructure could support Box's business? Well, an agile MIS infrastructure supports change. An agile MIS infrastructure, again, includes the hardware, software, and telecommunications equipment that's combined to provide the underlying foundation to support the organization's goals. So Box is going to need an agile infrastructure to support its operations. And that includes accessibility. So that determines what a user can access, view, or perform. And of course, that's going to be important in Box's case. Availability, again, they are going to have contractual obligations to provide systems, so they have to have high availability when the system is operational. Maintainability, how easy it is we can transform the system to support environmental changes. As their customer base changes, Box will need to change their systems accordingly. Portability, running on different devices or operating systems, especially if you want customers that can access things on, say, smartphones or tablets as well as desktops. Obviously, Box has to provide accurate information, has to scale up or adapt to the increased demands for growth, and has to be user-friendly. Next, what are the ways, or what are the reasons Box can help? Well, describe how Box can help a company with its disaster recovery plan and a business continuity plan. Well, again, a company should create a disaster recovery plan, and this is a detailed process for recovering information or a system in the event of a catastrophic disaster. This plan includes such factors as which files and systems need to have backups, and here Box can help with consulting, corresponding frequency of backups, a strategic location of the storage. Again, this is something Box can definitely help with. A disaster recovery plan foresees the possibility that not only computer equipment, but also the building may be destroyed. So it can recommend things like a hot site, and that's where you have a separate, fully equipped facility where the company can move immediately after a disaster and resume business. Obviously, if they're in the cloud and Box supports them, then that makes it much easier to do this. A cold site is a separate facility that does not have any computer equipment. And then a warm site has a computer equipment, but doesn't have the systems installed. So Box is a key supplier for offsite storage. So customers can easily recover from any type of major disaster, from a fire to equipment malfunctions. Keeping the data at Box would be a great way to ensure the company employees can get back on track if the company does experience a disaster. So apply the concepts of cloud computing to Box's business model. So marketing materials continually promote new technologies that promise to change the way businesses operate. And unfortunately, these devices rarely live up to the hype, but this case, cloud computing may be one new development that actually has lived up to its hype. Cloud computing has changed not only the way businesses operate, but also the way people interact with technology. Cloud computing refers to the use of resources and applications that are hosted remotely on the internet. The term comes from the image of a cloud used to represent the internet. So users connect to the cloud from their personal computers or portable devices, and they'll use a client. Usually it's going to be a web browser, but on smartphones, they may actually download an app. And to these individual users, the cloud appears as their personal application, device, or document. So it's like storing all of your software and documents in the cloud, and all you need is a device to access the cloud. No more hard drives, software, or processing power. That is all located in the cloud, transparent to users. And companies can use Box to store their cloud data or cloud applications. And again, Box is a key cloud player. So, analyze how Box can benefit from sustainable infrastructures. So, sustainable MIS infrastructures identify ways that a company can grow in terms of computing resources while simultaneously becoming less dependent on hardware and energy consumption. Sustainable or green MIS describes the production, management, use, and disposal of technology in a way that minimizes damage to the environment. Sustainable MIS is a critical part of corporate social responsibility, And that's the way that companies acknowledge responsibility to society overall. Building sustainable MIS infrastructures is a core initiative and a critical success factor for socially responsible corporations. The three primary side benefits of businesses' use of sustainable MIS is it reduces electronic waste, it reduces energy consumption, and it reduces carbon emissions. So next, develop a way that a company could benefit from using grid computing. Well, first they could combat e-waste, energy consumption, and carbon emissions. And again, this is something that if you're going to do that, you have to focus on creating a sustainable MIS infrastructure. And a sustainable MIS infrastructure is the way a company can grow while simultaneously becoming less dependent on hardware and energy consumption. And the components of sustainable MIS include grid computing. And again, this is a collection of computers, often geographically dispersed, that are coordinated to solve a common problem. A smart grid delivers electricity using two-way digital technology. It's meant to solve the problems of the world's outdated electrical grid. That'll make it more efficient and reliable by adding the ability to remotely monitor, analyze, and control the transmission of power. Cloud computing is another green or sustainable approach to MIS. And this, again, think of cloud computing as utility computing, where you pay as you use. So it has a pay per use revenue model, similar to the metered service that you have for gas or electricity in your homes. Virtualized computing creates a multiple virtual machines on a single computing device. And finally, assess how Box uses server virtualization to support its growth while helping the environment. So through the use of virtualization, computers can run multiple operating systems along with multiple software applications at the same time. And an analogy for this is a modern computer printer. In the past, you had to purchase a separate fax machine, copy machine, answering machine, and computer printer. This was expensive, required energy for those 4 separate devices, and created a lot of e-waste. Today, you buy a virtual printer with functions that include a fax machine, an answering machine, copy machine, as well as a printer. So you reduce your power requirements, your purchase cost, and e-waste. Virtualization is essentially a form of consolidation that can benefit sustainable MIS infrastructures in a variety of ways. By increasing availability of applications, they can give a higher level of performance, depending on the hardware used, of course. And by increasing energy efficiency, requiring less hardware to run multiple systems or applications, they also benefit sustainable or green initiatives for the environment. And then finally, by increasing hardware usability by running multiple operating systems on a single computer, again, you reduce the number of computers you have to buy, hardware, and that results in less power, less e-waste. Okay, any questions on that one?